antebellum period started to ignite, the people were starting the land fight. They started nice and easy with an ordinance. The first fell through, so they took their stance. In 1787, the Second Continental Congress bought temporary tutelage while permanent equality started a trot. However, it forbade the slavery issue there. The people at this time really didn't care. This land ordinance allowed for new states to enter the Union Gate. But to be a state, you had to meet some needs. First, Congress must appoint a governor, 3 judges, and a secretary as seeds. Second, you must elect an assembly of non-voting Congress, though. And third, 5,000 free inhabitants and 6,000 people living will tie the bow. However, you also need to seal with a Bill of Rights. With all this stuff, you'll have ease at nights. The ordinance wanted the territory to be not less than 3 states, but more made the Congress happy. In 1784, Jefferson made the draft for it, which only required 20,000 as a population, which is only a little bit. But in 1785, the land ordinance was ended by the Homestead Act of 1862. The government wanted a better method, so they were searching for a clue. Also in 1787, you got your freedom back, but no more than 5 states or Congress would attack. Later down the line, Thomas Jefferson was president, and left the Louisiana Territory, though it went against his belief. But it prevented the country from being in grief. The land was 500 some thousand acres. That was a lot of land, said the Quakers. They only paid $15 million, and the French gave it up. So Monroe was delighted so he drank his tea from a cup. See what happened was Spain owned the land, but they fought with the U.S. and we got banned. From the use of the New Orleans port, they made the Pinckney Treaty, which held in court. It was made in 1795, and Napoleon started new issues by starting up the recapture of Saint-Domingue, which made them need tissues. So then the French got the land in the 1800s with the fight of their men. Later on, Jefferson sent 2 men, but not 10. So the names of the men of Robert Livingston and James Monroe too, to France to try to buy the New Orleans and West Florida at a cost of $10 million, but they lost. As that happened, the French, as was decimated, and offered the Louisiana Territory for $15 million, and so they celebrated. On that day of April 30th, 1803, so they sent Lewis and Clark to explore even though we got all this land, the country wanted more, and they even took a stand. So later down the line, the Adams-Onis Treaty was when Spain was a Swede, and they ceded Florida plus claims on Oregon to the United States. John Quincy Adams and Don Luis de Onis came to the gates to negotiate on February 22nd, 1819. So the U.S. renamed its claim of Texas, which wasn't likely seen. But to start this treaty, let's look at Monroe. In 1818, Monroe went to Britain to negotiate, though. This treaty made Americans share fisheries with Canadians, which joint occupations of Oregon with all of the Europeans. And Louisiana border was on the 49th parallel in the Rocky Mountains, and the American claimed West Florida, including all its fountains. And with the Spanish revolutions, they left their half undefended. Jackson went to punish the Indians, but that was not how it ended. He even hung 2 Indian chiefs with a smack, and Spain demanded their territory back. So the Secretary of State, John Quincy Adams, negotiated with Louis de Onis, who wasn't a madam. We got the territory for $5 million, but not 20 gazillion. However, we had to abandon Texas claims, which will later bring flames.
Okay, Aaron. Do you hold it? Because
Daniel Webster was a Secretary of State. His involvement in foreign policy was great. The Webster-Ashburton Treaty in 1842 was just something he had to do. Britain and the U.S. had three primary issues: borders, Canadian rebellion, and slave trade were the feuds. Britain didn't want any more U.S. sailors to go to Africa and take more slavers. U.S. told Britain not to break a sweat because the U.S. warships would keep them in check. "Don't help with the Canadian rebellion," Britain cried, and the U.S. made a treaty after Macleod was tried. U.S. and Britain confusion on borders was a real aggravation, so they settled on the Great Lakes with open water navigation. In the end, Webster and Lord Ashburton were glad. However, the U.S. still had a problem with Texas that was bad. After the Louisiana Purchase, they had thought Texas won. The blood and business ties to the U.S. benefited a ton. The U.S. thought wrong because it took 9 long years. The debates over Texas being a slave state brought tears. The Union blocked the entry of Texas' statehood, which resulted in a gain in confidence and culture for good. The newly found proud independence prolonged its entrance, but when Polk came into office, he had acceptance. Britain opposed the annexation to prevent the westward show. What they had forgot was the American right manifest destiny, though. The Oregon Territory was highly diplomatic. Spain, Great Britain, Russia, and the U.S. were all fanatics. The territory became so focused upon the U.S. because manifest destiny. But before it was split up among the rest in 1819, Spain gave their portion to the U.S. with the Transcontinental Treaty, and yet the U.S. still acted greedy. The territory was finally split along the 49-degree line. Lord Ashburton and John C. Calhoun created a compromise that did just fine. The state ratified the treaty for the split, and the Oregon Territory was now part of the U.S. There you go.
After Texas joined the U.S. in 1846, Americans talked and decided we needed a fix. As America fought Mexico in the war over land, President Polk decided to step in and lend a hand. Signing the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo in 1848, this and the Mexican Cession ended all the hate. With California and Texas now part of the Union, the idea of slavery continued to bring some confusion. Wanting more land and expanding the South, the United States decided to open their mouth. Now citing the Goodson Purchase of 1853, the U.S. got Arizona and New Mexico like it was meant to be. Paying $10 million for 29,670 square miles of Mexico, the expanded United States was a growing country, you know.